The screech of bolt cutters biting through hardened steel echoed across the water at 6:15 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in August. Captain James Holloway, 52, a commercial fishing operator for 23 years, stood frozen on his deck 3 slips away, coffee mug halfway to his lips. He watched a woman in designer yoga pants and a visor systematically severing the security chain on his private dock access gate. 3 months. 3 months of escalating harassment from the Harborside HOA president who decided his fishing operation didn't fit her upscale marina aesthetic. But this morning, Linda Crawford had finally crossed a line she couldn't uncross. And what she didn't know was that James had spent the last 2 weeks documenting every violation, consulting with maritime lawyers, and setting up cameras she'd never noticed. Today wasn't just another confrontation. Today was the day Captain Holloway reminded everyone exactly who owned these waters. Where are you from? Tell us in the comments below. And if you're loving this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales of justice served. Now, let's see exactly how this unfolded. This is a story in 3 parts. The violation that pushed a seasoned captain too far. The confrontation where decades of maritime authority met suburban entitlement. And the resolution where harbor law proved stronger than any homeowners association. The first part follows James Holloway through 12 weeks of psychological warfare. A successful fishing captain who'd operated from this marina since before the luxury condos even existed. James Watts, as a newly elected HOA president, decided his working boats were an eyesore. What began as passive-aggressive emails became active sabotage. Equipment disappeared. Dock lines were loosened. Complaints were filed with every agency Linda could find. James tried reasoning, tried official channels, tried ignoring it. Nothing worked. And every failed attempt only emboldened her further until she believed herself untouchable. The toll it took on a man who weathered literal storms became unbearable. The second part captures the moment Linda's bolt cutters met James's preparation. When she cut that chain, she triggered more than just an alarm. She activated a response that involved harbor patrol, maritime law enforcement, and documentation that proved James's rights predated her authority by 2 decades. The confrontation revealed exactly how much research James had done, and how little Linda understood about maritime jurisdiction. The final part shows what happens when federal waterway regulations collide with an HOA president's ego. Justice arrived on multiple fronts, and Linda Crawford learned that some territories have laws older and stronger than any neighborhood covenant. Here's exactly how it happened. James Holloway had earned every weathered line on his face. 52 years old, with hands calloused from rope and net. He'd been a commercial fishing operator since he was 29, working these waters before most of the current marina residents even knew this town existed. His 2 boats, the Morning Tide and the Second Chance, weren't pretty by yacht standards, but they were spotless working vessels that had supported his family, put 2 kids through college, and employed 6 crew members. He purchased his dock rights in 2001, back when this marina was still a working waterfront, before the luxury condos started climbing skyward and the yacht club opened its gilded doors. James lived modestly in a small house 10 minutes inland, but his life revolved around this dock, these boats. This water. The trouble started in May when Linda Crawford, 47, recently retired from pharmaceutical sales and elected HOA president by a margin of 3 votes, decided the marina needed elevation. Her first email to James was polite but pointed. Working boats diminish property values. Could he consider relocating? James replied professionally that his dock rights were grandfathered and legally protected. Linda's smile at the next marina meeting didn't reach her eyes. 2 weeks later, James arrived at dawn to find his dock box open, expensive navigation equipment missing. No signs of forced entry, but his lock had been changed. Marina security footage mysteriously wasn't working that night. He filed a police report. The officer took notes but warned that marina theft was hard to prove. James replaced the equipment, upgraded to a better lock, and added it to his insurance claim. The incidents escalated. In mid-June, he discovered someone had loosened the dock lines on the morning tide during high tide. The boat had drifted into a piling, causing $2,000 in hull damage. His crew reported seeing Linda walking the docks late that evening, but without direct proof. What could James do? She smiled sweetly when they passed each other, asking if he'd reconsidered relocating yet. By July, Linda had filed complaints with the Coast Guard, EPA, Health Department, and County Planning Commission, claiming James's operations violated environmental regulations, created noise pollution, and exceeded permit limits. Every agency came out, inspected thoroughly, and found nothing. Each inspection meant lost workdays, crew members standing idle, customers rescheduled. James's stress levels climbed. His wife Sarah watched him lose weight, lose sleep, lose the easy smile that had always defined him. But every agency exoneration only seemed to make Linda more determined. James tried reasoning with her directly. He caught her in the parking lot one afternoon in mid-July, kept his voice calm and respectful. He explained his rights, his livelihood, his history here. Linda's response was ice cold. This marina is evolving. Your business is a relic. You can adapt or leave, but I will not rest until this waterfront reflects the community standards we deserve. When James mentioned his legal protections, she laughed. I have lawyers too. And patience. How long can you afford to fight? The breaking point came 3 weeks later. James arrived at 5:30 a.m. for a charter fishing trip. 6 paying customers waiting, and found bright orange condemned stickers plastered across both his boats. Fake notices printed on Linda's home computer claiming Coast Guard violations. By the time he contacted the Coast Guard, proved they were fraudulent, and cleaned them off, his customers had canceled. $600 gone. His reputation questioned. That evening, James stopped calling lawyers asking for advice. He started calling lawyers asking for strategy. If Linda wanted war, he'd give her one fought on his terms, in his territory, under laws she didn't even know existed. The motion-activated camera James installed inside the gate housing caught everything in crystal clarity. Linda Crawford arrived at 6:12 a.m. on August 15th, parking her white BMW in a visitor spot. She pulled bolt cutters from her trunk, walked directly to James's gate, and began cutting. She worked methodically, almost cheerfully, glancing around but never looking up at the camera positioned 12 feet above her head. The chain fell away at 6:15 a.m. She gathered it up, tossed it in a nearby trash bin, and dusted off her hands with visible satisfaction. James stepped out from behind the harbor master's office, where he'd been waiting since 5:45 a.m. Harbor Patrol Officer Mike Rodriguez stood beside him, having arrived 20 minutes earlier at James's request. Linda froze mid-step when she saw them approach. "Good morning, Linda," James said, his voice carrying across the dock with the authority of decades commanding boats in rough seas. "Mind explaining what you're doing with those bolt cutters?" Linda recovered quickly, straightening her visor. "I'm removing an unauthorized obstruction. That chain violates marina safety codes. As HOA president, I have authority to—" "You have no authority over federal waterway access points," Mike interrupted, his hand resting casually on his radio. "Ma'am, I need to see identification." James pulled out his phone, displaying a document. "This is my dock license, issued by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in 2001. It grants me exclusive access rights to slips 14 through 16, including gate access. That chain you just cut? Registered with the harbor master, key to federal maritime lock standards. You just destroyed federal property." Linda's face paled, but she rallied. "You're bluffing. I've researched the regulations. HOA covenants supersede." "Nothing," James finished. "HOA covenants supersede nothing when it comes to navigable waterways and licensed commercial operations. Let me tell you what else I know, Linda. I know your full name is Linda Marie Crawford. I know you live at 4892 Harborview Circle. Unit 301, I know your husband Richard is a patent attorney, and your daughter Emily is a junior at state. I know this because over the past 2 weeks, I've compiled a complete case file. He pulled out a tablet, turning it to show her. June 4th, 11:47 p.m., you were captured on 3 separate security cameras walking past my boats. June 12th, my equipment disappeared. June 18th, dock lines loosened. I have timestamps, footage, and witness statements. I also have copies of every fraudulent complaint you filed, every false report, every harassment incident. My maritime lawyer has reviewed everything. The U.S. Attorney for Maritime Violations was very interested in the fake Coast Guard notices. Linda's confident posture crumbled. You can't prove I can prove all of it, James said quietly. But here's what's going to happen. Option 1. Officer Rodriguez arrests you right now for destruction of federal property, criminal mischief, and harassment. I file a federal civil suit for damages, lost income, and emotional distress. My lawyer estimates $30,000 to $40,000, and that's just the beginning. Your husband's firm will love explaining to his partners why his wife is facing federal maritime charges. He let that sink in before continuing. Option 2. You resign as HOA president immediately. You issue a written apology to me and the Marina community. You pay for the replacement chain, which is specialty maritime grade, costs $1,400, and must be ordered from a marine supply company. You cease all contact with me, my business, and my family. You withdraw every complaint you filed, and you never ever interfere with a licensed commercial operation again. Linda's voice came out small. That's extortion. That's accountability, Mike said. Ma'am, I've been harbor patrol for 11 years. I've seen people like you try to push out working boats before. It never ends well. Captain Holloway is giving you a lifeline. I'd take it. Linda looked between them, her designer yoga pants suddenly seeming ridiculous on the working dock, surrounded by commercial fishing equipment and the smell of diesel and salt water. Fine, she whispered. Fine, I'll do it. James pulled out a prepared document. Sign here. Witnessed by Officer Rodriguez. And Linda? I'm keeping those cameras running, permanently. Linda Crawford's letter of resignation appeared in the HOA newsletter 3 days later. The official reason cited, personal commitments requiring immediate attention. The unofficial whispers that spread through the marina told a different story. James didn't participate in the gossip, but he didn't stop it either. Truth had a way of finding daylight in small communities. The replacement chain arrived on August 22nd. James stood by his gate at 7 a.m. when a silver Lexus pulled up. Richard Crawford stepped out, not Linda, carrying a receipt and looking profoundly uncomfortable. He was a tall man with graying temples and lawyer's eyes that couldn't quite meet James's gaze. Captain Holloway, Richard said, extending the receipt. Payment for the chain. $1,400 as specified. I've also brought a cashier's check for an additional $3,000 to cover your lost charter income and damages we can't dispute. He paused, choosing words carefully. Linda won't be returning to the marina. We're putting our condo on the market. I apologize for everything she put you through. There's no excuse. James accepted the payment, noting Richard's genuine contrition. Your wife convinced herself that her preferences mattered more than other people's rights. Maybe this teaches her differently. I hope so, Richard said quietly. He hesitated, then added, For what it's worth, I reviewed your documentation. It was thorough, professional. You could have destroyed her legally. I'm a fisherman, not a destroyer, James replied. I just wanted to do my job in peace. But the resolution extended beyond Linda's departure. The following week, the Marina Board called an emergency meeting. 8 condo owners showed up demanding explanations, wanting to understand how their HOA president had committed federal violations. James attended, brought his documentation, and spent 90 minutes educating people about maritime law, grandfather rights, and the history of the marina they moved into. A younger resident, maybe 35, raised his hand. "Mr. Holloway, I moved here 6 months ago. I honestly didn't understand what you did or how long you've been here. Linda told us you were operating illegally. I'm sorry we believed her without checking." Others echoed his sentiment. One woman mentioned her father had been a commercial fisherman. A retired couple talked about growing up in fishing communities. The narrative shifted. By meeting's end, 3 residents had asked about booking charters. The real twist came in September. James received a call from the County Planning Commission. The investigator who'd inspected his operation in July, following Linda's complaints, had recommended James for a County Small Business Award recognizing sustainable maritime operations. His meticulous environmental compliance, his crew training programs, his 23-year record of safe operation, all the things Linda had tried to weaponize, had instead highlighted his excellence at the awards ceremony on September 28th. James stood before county officials and local business owners, accepting a plaque and a small grant for equipment upgrades. The irony wasn't lost on him. Linda's harassment campaign had resulted in more scrutiny than he'd ever face. And that scrutiny had revealed only his professional integrity. 2 months after the chain incident, James sat on the deck of the Morning Tide at sunset, coffee in hand, watching pelicans dive for fish. His daughter Emily Different Emily had flown in from Denver for the weekend, and they'd spent the day fishing, talking, just being together. The new chain hung securely on his gate, gleaming in the dying light. No more anonymous complaints arrived at regulatory agencies. No more mysterious equipment failures. The Marina had settled into peaceful coexistence. His phone buzzed. A text from Mike Rodriguez. "Boat check tomorrow?" Just a routine harbor patrol visit. The kind of normal interaction James had always valued. James smiled, the deep lines around his eyes crinkling with genuine contentment. He'd learned something valuable through Linda's campaign of harassment, that rights were only as strong as your willingness to defend them, that documentation was more powerful than anger, and that the law, when properly understood and applied, protected those who respected it. He'd also learned he was stronger than he'd known, capable of fighting back without becoming cruel. The water lapped gently against the hull. Somewhere across the harbor, a boat horn sounded. James's life continued exactly as it had before Linda Crawford decided it shouldn't, except now he appreciated it more deeply. Because justice, whether served in courtrooms or on working docks, was equally satisfying when it protected what you built with your own hands. Across the country in Sedona, Arizona, master pottery artist Mae John was loading her kiln when her HOA president demanded she cease operating her industrial facility. Mae, whose ceramic work sold in galleries for 5 figures, smiled slowly. The same smile she'd worn when her sculptures won the National Endowment for the Arts grant. She opened her workshop permit, signed by the county commissioner who happened to be her studio apprentice's mother. "Please, continue explaining zoning regulations to me," she said softly. "But that's a story for another time."